Hello and welcome back to another Doctor Who action figure review. In today's review, I'm taking a look at the upcoming Doctor Who The Regeneration Set, featuring the 13th Doctor and the new 14th Doctor, which is a character online exclusive. This comes out in January. I was very kindly sent an advanced preview to take a look at. It's a great set, but as ever, before we dive into the figures, let's take a look at the packaging. So the figures come packaged in a shipper box like all of the character online exclusives, and then you have the actual packaging inside, which is this beautiful window presentation box. We have the new version of the diamond logo slap bang in the middle, which has been printed in a glossy effect with more diamonds around it on this white background. It looks absolutely fantastic, very stylish, very clean. There's this little cutout window where you can see the Regeneration Set 2-figure collector set at the bottom, and then the back of the packaging is very much the same as the front, but with all the trademark stuff. Then the other sides of the box have the logo in the elongated format, so without the diamond, just the words Doctor Who. I know that version of the logo is quite divisive. I don't mind it. I mean, obviously, it's nowhere near as good as the actual diamond logo, but I think it works here, particularly on such a stark background. And then opening up the front window, we have a look at the figures inside and some biographies about the two Doctors inside the set. Again, the packaging here is amazing. You can see that they've used elements of the diamond logo as a frame for the packaging. It looks fantastic. And I can't wait to see how the logo and all of these elements are applied to new packaging moving forward. And alongside the bios, we are treated to some promo images of both of the Doctors. And then, of course, we can see the figures inside in that lovely window display. And then sliding the figures out of the box, you can see they've got this vortex behind them, kind of like regeneration energy, and the figures come packaged with the sonic screwdriver right down in the bottom corner, tucked out of the way. So out of the box, both figures look fantastic. I mean, I'm loving the new 14th Doctor, but before we get onto him, let's talk about the 13th Doctor. Now, actually, both of these figures have lots of new tooling going on, which is really cool. Always great to see new stuff going on with the figures. There's a lot going on with the new 13th Doctor. So this is the 13th Doctor in the outfit that the Master dons when the Master becomes the Doctor. Obviously, it's an amalgamation of all of the different Doctors' outfits over the years, and they've done a really fantastic job with it. Starting with the head, it's the same head sculpt that we've seen before. Great likeness of Jodie Whittaker, lovely paint applications, very crisp around the lips and the eyes, the eyebrows. I've got to say, I think the hair is the best paint apps for the hair on any Jodie figure. They've got some really good natural washes, darker at the roots and then just all the way throughout. Also worth noting is that the earring hasn't been painted on. That's obviously because the Master wasn't wearing the earring at that point, so she therefore doesn't have the earring either. Then moving down to the costume, which is where things begin to get very interesting. So the coat sculpt appears to be updated from the original one because if you look carefully, the tops of the scarf are sculpted on directly to the coat. It's part of that tool. And then you've got the two extra bits of scarf flowing down, which are separate pieces that have been glued on. The paint apps on the coat look great. You know, the same sort of colour that we've seen before, that very pale greyish blue, the darker blues in the hood, lovely sculpt, all the natural folds in the hood look fantastic, the seams, all that kind of stuff that we've seen on the previous figures. The scarf has a really good ribbed texture, just like the actual scarf, and it is also painted in the colours that we see in the TV show. So you've got the oranges on there, that very bluish grey, not the colours that we see on the 4th Doctor's actual scarf, but they've done a good job here recreating the colours as seen in The Power of the Doctor. And even down to the tassels, they've added a bit of a wash over those just to make it look like there's multiple colours there. And it's interesting actually, when you look at the back of the scarf's actually green. Another addition to the coat is, of course, the 5th Doctor's celery, which appears to be the same sculpt that we've seen on all of the previous 5th Doctors. However, this time they've painted it in a more vivid green to match the Abbey shot celery stick that was used in the programme. So that's great, the fact that they've used that there. One thing to point out is there's a little bit of bleed with the glue. You can see it's a bit glossy underneath there, but it's nothing too major. And of course, like the other coats, you've got the multicoloured pattern on the inside. And then beneath that, we have more new tooling. We've got a brand new neck and torso piece. So the shirt is taken from Peter Capaldi, hence why it's got the big white collar. And then we've got the tie taken from the 10th Doctor. And then as part of that, we also have the top V-neck piece of the 7th Doctor's vest. And then we have a separate piece, which is plugged in over the top, which is the rest of the vest. And again, that has been recreated really well. all of the knitted texture, that ribbed texture across the top and across the bottom. Colours really match the Lovarzi colours of the jumper, so they've done an excellent job there. Sticking with the coat, let's move over to the arms. So the top pieces and the elbow joints, those are the same, but when we move down to the lower arms, these are new sculpts. We've got the cuffs of the coat turned up, so you can see that very pale lavender colour on the inside lining of the coat, which is lovely. And then, of course, we have the large cuffs, again, taken from the 12th Doctor's shirt, which hang down. You can see they've got the split there. You've got the buttons sculpted on. It's really great attention to detail, and it works really well. And then moving down to the legs, I think the top part of the legs are the same as the previous 13th Doctor figure, but of course the lower legs are now different trousers turned up at the bottom and different boots. So the boots are tucked under the turned up element of the trousers. They sit longer on her leg, so you don't see any of her shin or the socks. There's some discrepancy on who the trousers are based on, and then we have the Matt Smith style boots, and these have been painted in brown. And of course she comes with a sonic screwdriver, which fits in her hand very snugly. So in terms of articulation on the 13th Doctor, she has the usual ball-jointed head, so she has a full range of movement, which is great. At the shoulders, they swivel up and down, slightly hindered by the hood, but not too much. And of course she has articulation at the bicep as well, pivoting elbows, and articulation at the wrists, which turn 360 degrees as well. Then moving down to the waist, well, I would assume she does have waist articulation, but because of the thickness of the coat and of course the thickness of the jumper, you can't really move her legs particularly well. The coat here is really quite stiff, as is the jumper. This is like rock solid. So any hip articulation, so trying to move the legs forward, is so difficult. I mean, I'm pushing quite hard and I don't really want to force it. So leg articulation at the top is basically non-existent. She also has articulation at the knees as usual, but again, because of the thickness of the coat, you're not really getting an awful lot of movement out of there. And it's quite hard to show you guys because she's got this big coat in the way. Articulation-wise, it is fairly standard for the 13th Doctor, just hindered, of course, by the new parts. And then, of course, the scarf is quite malleable as well. So overall, this is a really great figure. I gotta say, people have heard me talk about Power of the Doctor on the review of Death, so I won't go into the story. But I've got to say, this makes for a really fun figure. Regardless of what you think about the Master putting on all the Doctor's different bits and bobs, it does make for a fun figure on the shelf. And of course, it sets it apart from all the other Jodie Whittaker figures, which have all been repaints. Yeah, it's a really fun figure, and one that I didn't expect we'd see, and I'm really pleased be able to display it on the shelf. Now, of course, the other figure that we need to discuss is the 14th Doctor, our new Doctor, or sort of new Doctor, as portrayed by the 10th Doctor himself, David Tennant. So this is a brand new sculpt for David Tennant in terms of the head. Lots of new pieces here, a little bit of part reuse, but we'll talk about that now. So looking at the head sculpt, one of the things that I must point out is the fact that the promo images didn't really do the sculpt an awful lot of justice. Some people were saying that it didn't look like David Tennant whatsoever. Having the figure in hand and having the figure here on camera, that is nonsense. It really does look like David Tennant. You can see it's Tennant. Obviously, he looks a bit different compared to how he looked in 2006. He's a lot older. They've done a really good job of capturing his likeness as he looks today. He's got that flick of hair at the front, which is great. I love that they've managed to capture that. They've even added a bit of grey at the temples there by his ears, which is another nice touch that, you know, he's older than he was back then. I think some people think that they could have just slapped the old head on top of it and it would have been fine. But no, I'm really glad that they've gone for this because the hair's so much more different than it was back when he was playing Doctor Who initially. So they did a really good job. I think he looks great. Moving down to the costume, of course, there's a lot to talk about here. Obviously, we've got a brand new coat piece, which is lovely. It's got this real texture to it to capture the woolen effect of the real coat. Lots of detail with the buttons, you've got the pockets sculpted in, and all of the seams around the lapels. And it has a dark wash over the top that really gets into the texture of the sculpt, so it looks great. And again, of course, we've got brand new arms, which again also feature the same texture as the rest of the coat, and these have ball-jointed arms. The first time we've had ball-jointed arms on a 10th Doctor since Tuxedo 10th Doctor. This is 14th Doctor, so, well, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. It's the first time we've seen it on a David Tennant figure, put it that way. And again, that's really great. But of course, underneath, we've got all the detail of the new costume. So the torso is a completely brand new piece. You can see the sculpt of the waistcoat underneath, which is great. You know, that it doesn't quite fit him. It's quite tight around the top. He's only got the one button done up. You've got the tie underneath as well, which they've painted grey, and there's like a white wash over the top and then black speckles. I actually thought the tie was more silver in some of the location pictures, but I guess we'll find out more as more pictures of the 10th Doctor. I'm going to keep saying that, as more pictures of the 14th Doctor are released. And then, of course, you can see he's got the tartan pattern over his waistcoat and over his trousers, and that's been very well done. Again, very neat and tidy. Lots of great details with the creases in the outfit and the shirt. You know, everything seems slightly ill-fitting, but you can see the tie hanging out underneath. They've done a really fantastic job of this. And then going down to the legs, these are the legs that used to be used on the 10th Doctor, and again, they've just been repainted to match the rest of the costume. If you saw me talking about this on the Review of Death podcast the other day, Billy mentioned that the trousers don't quite match what we see on screen for the 14th Doctor, and they don't, you know, I think they're slightly turned up at the bottom, not quite as baggy, but of course, you know, it made a lot of sense to reuse the legs as they were on the 10th Doctor, because they're so similar to what we see with the 14th Doctor. So that makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure people are going to be asking, can the 14th Doctor hold the 13th Doctor's sonic screwdriver? Yes, he can. It fits in his hand snugly as well. But I'm sure if you've all seen the pictures from the location filming going on, you'll know that the 14th Doctor won't be using the 13th Doctor's sonic screwdriver for very long. And then for the 14th Doctor, he has articulation at the head. This can turn side to side. Wouldn't turn it too far because you don't want the collar cutting into the neck. He has ball-jointed shoulders, so they swivel out to the sides and can go 360s, so that's great. We have bicep articulation, pivoting elbows, and 360-degree turns at the wrists. And then at the waist, he also has articulation. Again, it's slightly hindered by the fact that he's got the coat and the extended pieces of the waistcoat hanging down here. And he also has articulation at the hips, so these can pivot outwards, and then the pivoting knees, just like all the previous David Tennant figures. So overall, this is a fantastic set. I absolutely love that we got this. It was a complete surprise to me. I had no idea that this was coming out. So the fact that we're getting the 14th Doctor so early is amazing. You know, his episodes aren't going to be airing until November, but the fact that we've got him coming out now is really, really great. As far as I'm aware, this is going to be the only way you can get this 14th Doctor in the long blue coat. So obviously it's his iconic look. If you want this version of the 14th Doctor, then you're going to have to go and pre-order this set. And of course, the 13th Doctor that comes with it is another great variant. And of course, on top of all that, you have this beautiful presentation box, which just looks lovely on display. There we go, guys. That is the Regeneration set. It is still available to pre-order now from Character Online. I've put the link in the description below. And this will be shipping in January, so you won't have long to wait. And of course, you won't have the trouble of having to go hunting for these figures like you do when the B&M sets come out. So honestly, a fantastic set. Go and pre-order it now. It really is rather special. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to Character for sending these over to me to have an advanced look. And I hope to see you all soon in the new year for some more Doctor Who action figure reviews. Bye-bye.